Hi everyone, my name's Paul. I'm a director of the Data Science and AI Association of Australia. I've created the Star AI course, and I'm the founder of Core AI. We are a consultancy that creates customized artificial intelligence applications. So if you'd like to get in touch, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. But yeah, it's been a while since the last podcast. I got pretty much inundated with work over the last 2 months. But this week I was lucky enough to interview Dr. Eugene Dubossarsky. Eugene is kind of a legend here in the data science community of Sydney. He has been doing data science in one way, shape or form pretty much since the 80s. He was playing around with neural nets way back when backprop was rediscovered. So yeah, he is a highly seasoned, I guess, data scientist. But he's also involved in so many other things in the data science and machine learning field. So as far as I know, he does data science training. So you should check that out. If I think Prescient is his company. Prescient, spelled with 2 I's. .com.au. He has his own consultancy. And I believe he's also developing like several apps, also all of this stuff, all focused on data science in one way, shape or form. So yeah, this was a really interesting but brief interview with Eugene. We sort of dived into what Eugene believes was a lot of the current problems with the data science industry, and also what he thinks a few remedies to those problems could be. We also cover some content with regards to how you could also get started as a data scientist. So yeah, with all that being said, looking forward to kicking off this episode. Let's do it. Hi Eugene, welcome to the Humans of AI. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Very happy to.
So for all the listeners out there, Eugene is a bit of a legend in the data science community here in Sydney. And I reached out to him a couple of weeks back to ask if he'd like to do a podcast, which he agreed to.
Oh, we're doing a podcast. Bye.
Yes. Yeah. Fair enough. I don't blame you.
Oh, all right. I'll hang around. What the hell? Is this thing on?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned to you before, this podcast is called The Humans of AI, trying to focus on the human element, so the human element being you.
Some people would dispute that.
Fair enough. But the idea is just to sort of, I'd love to hear your story of how you got started in the field, and then where you are now, and then where you think the whole field or future of this is going.
Well, I actually don't want to spend too much time on my story, mostly because I don't think it's very relevant to anyone.
Sure.
Basically, sometime between the fall of the new dynasty of ancient Egypt and the rise of the Roman Empire, I was doing my undergraduate degree in the early Bronze Age, or as we call it, the late 80s. And just before Julius Caesar conquered Gaul, I heard about this thing called neural nets. And
so we're talking 1980s?
We're talking 1989, so almost not the 80s, but yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, the 80s. So the real neural net revolution, where we went from nothing to, wow, there are these things called neural nets and they do amazing things. It wasn't 2007, which was the deep learning revolution, which was pretty cool. It was actually about 1985 with the discovery, or actually rediscovery, of the backprop algorithm. Mm-hmm. See, I'm already saying way more than I want to, because my journey is irrelevant. My journey came at a time when it was almost impossible to explain to people what it is that I do. Now, I developed an unhealthy obsession for machine learning at a time when no one knew what the hell it was. There was very little business application for it, and in a probably counterproductive and pig-headed way, I persevered because it was the only thing I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And indeed, my brief stint in the workforce after my undergraduate degree with an honours thesis in unsupervised neural networks, actually, I ended up doing a PhD because really there was nothing else for me to do.
Sure.
What was interesting was that after my PhD, things started appearing for me to do, and then of course the dot-com crash happened. See, again, ancient history. So dot-com crash.
So
around the
roughly
time
when did you finish your PhD?
Well, probably around the collapse of the Roman Empire. So talking AD 400 or so, or more precisely, I actually finished my PhD in 1997, 98. Yeah, late 97, early 98.
Can you elaborate on what your thesis was on?
Well, I guess the only important point, and since we're friends and you're going to get to know me, my nickname is Moose.
Okay.
So now everybody knows.
Like a Top Gun?
Well, Moose. I don't think there was there a moose in Top Gun?
So,
there was a goose.
Yeah, right.
Right. Goose died. I don't want to be Goose.
Sure, fair.
I actually saw a really funny send-up of the new Top Gun film called Weekend at Goose's. So my nickname was Moose. So whatever I did had to have that as the acronym. So big shout out, by the way, to Tom Osborne, another legend of data science in Sydney and my PhD supervisor. And under his guidance, and also the guidance of Sam Reisenfeld, big shout out to him, another one of my supervisors, I produced something called the multi-rate optimizing order statistic equalizer.
Okay.
And all you really need to know is that the letters form the word moose, and it was a kind of a non-standard neural network for time series.
Cool.
So I was doing neural nets before they were cool.
Yep.
In fact, I wrote my own neural nets in C++.
Same.
Do I go anywhere near that now? No.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, so that was the PhD. The ideas from the PhD have served me well, primarily in terms of rank statistics. So there were things that I learned and I guess mastered that have proved to be quite handy. And obviously I learned a fair bit about neural nets way back then. So when the deep learning revolution came along, it was a very pleasant surprise. It was great to see the field flourish, but it was also disappointing to see so much misguided focus on the wrong things, which is still prevalent. I think, is the industry overhyped? Yes, the way the internet was overhyped in 1998, meaning...
Yeah, completely agree. I think that's by far the best analogy.
Yeah. I think you can have something can be truly transformational and truly there to stay, yet completely missold and overhyped at the same time. And I think the identification of data analytics with machine learning, and then machine learning as being superseded by deep learning. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning.
Yep.
And then the identification of deep learning with AI. Spoiler alert, it's not. AI is much bigger than machine learning. Anyway,
sure.
All this misidentification and focus on, frankly, a tool set that is really, really good at doing very special things that Google needs to do and most Australian companies don't. There are, like yesterday, we had two great presentations at Data Science Sydney, one of which in particular was from a company that does need to do deep learning and does it very, very well. But every bank, every telco, every insurance company, do they need deep learning? Do they need image? Do they need serious speech recognition as their main business application? Absolutely not. So yeah, I was impressed with the ongoing progress with deep learning, but I'm less impressed with the focus.
Sure. Okay, so we've gone from your start in the 80s up to how you feel about the application of deep learning now, I guess.
Yes. So what happened in between was around 1998. I went on a mission to the Arctic.
Really?
Where I fought a polar bear and ended up trapped in ice, frozen for literally 25 years, which is why after 1998. I couldn't count because that's only 21 years ago, and here I am. They only defrosted me yesterday. So nothing happened in all that time, absolutely nothing.
Mate,
I was trapped in ice.
I know you have there's so many things going on. I know there's more to the story than that.
All right, well, some of those polar bears were in fact from an organization called Alpha Zeta, which I give a big shout out to now. So for the last 12 years, I've been very much on my own, which is also where I find a large and growing number of the, I guess, the unicorns in the field. They don't really last in the industry. It's no secret that there's a lot of churn in the industry. Yeah. I think we need to talk more about why that churn happens, because actually people are quite open about why the churn happens, but organisations are not. And I don't find enough recruiters or HR people being open about why the churn happens, even though they say they're concerned about it.
Would you feel comfortable talking about that now?
Well, that's what I'm doing.
Awesome.
And what I'm saying is I feel comfortable about it, but I have a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a hell and brimstone kind of guy. So I'll just skirt around the edges. Let's just say that the people most likely to churn are the brightest and most unique. And the other question is, how do they churn? So they'll go, oh, this organisation, well, there's a reason to churn from it. They churn, they go to another large organisation, they go, funny that, those same things are happening in this organisation as well. They go through 3 or 4, and it starts dawning on them that it may actually be perhaps universal. Then they might move to a consulting company thinking that's a cure. It's certainly a change, but it's not a cure. And ultimately what happens? Well, they might end up in a serious tech company where these issues don't exist. They might end up in Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. So they might end up freelancing, starting their own tech company, their own startup. And in some unfortunate cases, they actually leave the industry altogether, and that usually goes hand in hand with mental health problems that they neither deserve nor cause themselves. There are definitely issues, systemic and well understood issues in the modern workplace. First of all, if you really want to know, go and listen to some of my other podcast interviews and so forth.
Sure.
Maybe you'll coax it out of me.
Can you
I'm being provocative.
Can you name any names of the podcasts to go listen to it?
Yeah, big shout out to Felipe Flores, who's probably the #1 data analytics boss to work for in Australia, in my opinion. If you are going to work in-house, the boss a good person is least likely to churn from, in my opinion.
Cool.
And he runs the Data Futurology podcast.
Okay.
Now, I might even answer your questions later, Paul, but what I wanted to experiment with was being a little deliberately obtuse, because I actually want people to reach out. If people are really interested in having a deeper conversation about why churn is happening, and especially if they are HR people, senior strategy people, the sort of people who at least appear to be making noises about how churn and data science is a big issue, let's have that conversation. I want to see the people who claim to be concerned about the churn in data science have the conversation about why this churn is occurring. So I want to leave it as a bit of a provocative statement.
Can we get some bullet points? Bullet points of what you think the key points are, or would you prefer to leave it an open question?
Well, I could. Let me give you my reason for possibly not.
Okay, sure.
And my reason for possibly not is I'd like to see some action on this. I'm sick of seeing people suffer. I'm sick of seeing waste. One side of it is that a lot of data scientists, they're being paid well, but they're not happy at all. They're not satisfied in their jobs. They're not clear on where they're going in their careers. They're not being treated well. And if I had to use one word, I'd say the word is dignity. I think data scientists are basically in a high-income, low-dignity environment in many cases.
Sure.
And most of them don't know how to articulate this. But I'm sick of saying this. What I'd like is for the sort of people who actually have decision-making power on this issue to actually reach out. Now, as far as I can tell, they either don't care or they know what I'm already saying. They just don't want to talk about it because it's not in their interests. So that's what. So yeah, I see systemic cultural problems in large organisations. I see problems of incentive, and a conclusion that points to either people knowing things and not acting on them, or people just obtusely refusing to even understand them. I will say this: one of the biggest problems, probably the biggest problem that analytics as an industry faces, the thing that makes analytics an unhealthy industry, an immature, chronically immature and chronically unhealthy industry, in spite of the increase in expenditure, the increase in profile, the increase in technology, I'd say the most chronic problem is the data illiteracy of the customers of analytics. So I'm talking about the people who pay the money, the people who say, let's have a data analytics function, the people who decide to hire the data analysts in the first place, the people who get up in conferences or wherever the heck else and brag about the high-tech data science culture they have while not participating in it in any meaningful way. The people who wouldn't know good data science from bad.
Are you talking about, there's quite a few things there. So one of the things that came to my mind whilst you're saying that was like applying data science to the right business problem in the first place, if you know what I mean. So selecting problems where you can actually generate value.
Yes, that is definitely missing. I used to say that was the issue, but for me now that's a downstream issue.
Okay.
To get to the point where you've got a well-defined problem, a whole bunch of other things need to be happening first. Okay. I actually believe that in order to ask sensible questions and therefore define a problem, you first of all have to have a level of curiosity and a level of understanding of what I would refer to as sense-making that analytics provides. And what I find is that most of the corporate champions of analytics are not themselves customers of analytics in any meaningful way, and they're not even ashamed of this. It's not like they're secretly walking away and going, I'd better pretend to be using analytics. It doesn't even occur to them that they need to pretend. They think, I don't know, whatever these senior decision makers think their job is, using analytics to make decisions seems to be either absent or marginal to what they see.
I think I can see where you're going. So is this sort of the dialogue about like embedding analytics as one of the key things you use to make decisions and then going from there to find business cases?
Well, I would say that by the time I'm almost disinterested in specific business cases. Analytics, the moment something is a business case, it's not an analytics issue anymore. It's a business issue. It's a project. Analytics is not business as usual, and analytics is not a project. Analytics is not an app. The way your eyes and ears are not an app or a project. It's a constant vigilance system. Analytics is first and foremost a vigilance system. It's not there primarily to address specific problems. It's there to identify problems in the first place. It's not there to help you do stuff, although it can do that as well. It's there primarily to help you work out what, if anything, needs doing. And as such, it is so radically different from the way organizations manage either projects or business as usual or IT, especially IT, that, again, we have a colossal, I think, cultural and management failure, and downstream from that are very unhappy and alienated but highly paid data scientists who incidentally are personally highly paid, but for some reason it's impossible to allocate budget for them to have a machine to do their job. The number of data scientists I come across who've got the 150K income but only an 8 gig laptop because their team manager finds it too politically inconvenient to confront the IT manager and say, give my people the tools and data to do their jobs.
I can sympathize with you on this.
I'm not the one having this problem. You don't need to sympathize with me. I'm fine. I'm the one who's sympathizing because I hear from people like this every day.
Sure.
I see this every day. In fact, by the way, one of my simple heuristics for figuring out when an organization isn't really serious about analytics is to see what kind of hardware the data scientists have access to. If it's 8 gig laptops but no cloud, I throw them in the non-serious bucket.
Sure.
It means that the political pain of overcoming that is more important than the value that analytics apparently delivers.
Sure. I think to backtrack just a little bit, I just want to clarify for myself and for the people that might be listening what your definition of analytics is. Because you said before that analytics is a vigilance system. Would you bucket like computer vision into the analytics basket, or would you say analytics is more like traditional analytics statistical methods when you're trying to massage your data and...
Look, to be meaningful,
yeah,
I'm talking about business analytics.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so, do we throw in machine vision? I would then throw it back and say machine vision in what context? Is it machine vision, doing LiDAR of the rooftops for an insurance company, or is it machine vision for robotics, for a military robot?
Right.
So context matters. So some of it can be, some of it not.
Okay, cool.
The most important thing for me is it's only analytics, it's only data science certainly, which I see as a subset of analytics, with the silent adjective business in front of both, by the way, when it's used to support decision making. So it is a vigilant system, that's important, but ultimately it's there to zero in on making good decisions.
Sure.
And just before you make good decisions, you need to be identifying opportunities and risks. It's all about identifying salient opportunities and risks, and making decisions about them.
Okay. Yep.
That's my definition, which I've actually got in one of my courses, in my data-driven decision-making course, I go through what I call the canonical use cases of data, where I've got about 8 different things you can do with data, only one of which is decision-making, some of which is things like compliance analytics. I actually don't see compliance analytics as, analytics in any sense that I'm interested in, because it's not about making the best decision you can. It's about satisfying a third party, a regulator, while doing things as efficiently or as minimally as possible to satisfy.
Agreed.
More pathologically, what is not decision support is justifying things with data. And that ranges from, we have a decision now, let's come up with arguments for the decision. So
Right.
being like lawyers in a court case rather than like, scientists trying to find the truth, all the way to actively lying. I think that's at worst unhelpful, more typically pathological, and possibly criminal. But it's a very common use case, and there's a few others. So
Using data analytics to lie.
yeah, well, I don't
To
call
be specific, yeah.
That for me, that's not something I'm interested in or call healthy data analytics. So
Fair enough.
the only
Yeah.
healthy analytics is analytics that supports meaningful business decisions. And then you realize that analytics only matters when decision making matters. And for a lot of organizations, it doesn't. Not when they're too big to fail, not when they're in a protected oligopoly.
Sure.
Analytics only matters when organizations and people in the organizations have to make decisions, and the consequences of not making a decision are bad as well. It's like you have to act, and if you act badly, the consequences are immediate and quite brutal. So at the other end, at the healthy end of the extreme, you'll have quantitative hedge funds. If their analytics is good, they make money. If their analytics is bad, they don't just break even, they lose money.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I can sympathize with a lot of what you said, personally seeing some of this in my own career. But yeah, would you mind if I asked you some more questions just from
Yeah, shoot.
Yeah, sure, cool. So, so we've talked quite a lot about. I had some questions for you here about like the state of the field. So I think we spent quite a bit of time talking about that. So I'm not sure if this is something you've addressed before, but I'd like to ask you this again, kind of out of personal motivation. So, what are some like factors that you think make what's called like a true data scientist? To what are the features that makes one, and what are the features that separate the signal from the noise?
Okay. There are two parts to your question that I want to answer. One of which is actually, I'll give you a minimal definition of what makes a good data scientist, and then I'll talk about signal from noise, which is interesting as well, because it seems to me that entirely the wrong people are using entirely the wrong methods to do the assessment and then management. Data scientists first. So I actually think by my definition, most people called data scientists don't make the grade at all. And similarly, a lot of people who are really good are the ones most likely to say, I'm not really a data scientist though, because I'm not good enough with the machine learning or whatever. And those people are usually brilliant. So first of all, a certain humility. The best ones are more humble. But to keep things simple, they need to understand data, and most so-called data scientists don't. If you can write import keras and run a whole bunch of programs and write a bunch of code, that doesn't make you a data scientist. Being able to understand data makes you a data scientist. And data speaks a language. It wants you to understand it. The language is called statistics. If you don't have an intuition for statistics, you're not a data scientist. So the data word and then the science word. If you don't understand science, if you don't understand the scientific method, if you don't understand that there can be holes in data, that there can be confounding factors, that you might need to run experiments, or worse, you can't run experiments, but you need to understand what it is you can infer in the absence of experiments. I think that's what makes you a data scientist. So I think a lot of people, particularly people who do a lot of online courses and maybe even some, even university courses, dare I say, actually don't make the grade. Not by my reckoning, not at all. They may at best be good support staff. Maybe you might call them machine learning engineers or something, but yeah, you sure as heck don't call them data scientists because they don't know how to look at data and they don't know science. Now, as far as the other side of it, which is figuring out who makes the grade and so forth.
Signal from noise, yeah.
Signal from noise.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting, right? Because I think the biggest signal from noise problem, which no one seems to want to address, it's not about identifying good data scientists. It's identifying good executives who can deploy data scientists. People talk about, oh, we need credentials for data scientists, but you know what? The sort of people, so-called data scientists, will look for credentials. You know what they tell? To me, it's a counterindicator. If someone comes to me and says, "Look at my certifications in data science," I'd say, "You're definitely not someone I want working for me, because you're the sort of person who's decided that you're going to market yourself primarily at the kind of people who require certification. You didn't even think about having me as a boss. I don't need your certification. I'm just going to talk to you for half an hour and work out if you're any good, or if you even stand a chance." But the sort of people who require certification, who can't tell a good data scientist from bad, okay, let's say the certification says this person is brilliant. What are they going to do with them? The sort of people who need a certificate are the sort of people who wouldn't know what to do with a good data scientist if they had one. Oh, by the way, the sort of people who wouldn't know what to do with a good data scientist are actually happier with bad data scientists. Because bad data scientists are less likely to say, no, that can't be done. They're less likely to quibble about what's true. They're less likely to try to explain to you what uncertainty is. They're less likely to explain that the very question you're asking is somehow flawed. They're more accommodating and less logical. So, yeah, I'd say bad managers and bad data scientists deserve each other and are probably happier working together.
So you reckon one of the things you said there, so you think asking good questions is part of being a good data scientist?
I think it takes one to know one, but it also takes an extremely data literate manager to manage one. The reason I'm so obsessed with this idea of data literacy now is because I see that as the biggest bottleneck in our industry. And the lack of data literacy on the customer side leaves me scratching my head. Why is everyone hiring data scientists? Everyone wants to hire one, but as far as actually making them useful, that seems to be a secondary concern. Yeah, I want to see a much more data literate management class, and a data literate management class won't need certification of the data scientists either. But I'd like to see the management class certified. My dream is maybe to spawn a company that can rate organizations on their data literacy, if only to spare data scientists a lot of pain by identifying places that might be worth working in.
And to everything you've just said, I say amen.
Hallelujah, brother.
Right. Oh, so the next question is kind of a follow on from the previous. Just watching time here. If you are starting out as a data scientist, so this is like the other end of the spectrum, like the flip side of the question. What do you think are the best ways to improve? Statistics.
Okay, so the best data scientists I know didn't wake up one day and decide they want to be data scientists.
Yep.
Not a single one of them. They might have redefined themselves as data scientists. I know I did, because the term just suddenly plopped. I had to call myself something else before that came along. In fact, I called myself a data miner for a long time. That was the term before. Meant pretty much the same thing. And I also remember a time when there was no term at all. I didn't know what to call myself, and that was a big problem. But the actuaries, statisticians, physicists, occasionally psychologists, who just do what they do and suddenly realize that calling themselves data scientists might help. And yeah, they acquired a little bit of machine learning and whatever along the side. It's not that hard to acquire if you've got the stats basics.
Agreed.
Going the other way is a lot harder though.
Agreed, 100%.
So I would say that if you've got serious STEM background, you're fine. What you need to learn is some details. If you don't have the serious STEM background, you have a lot to learn. And the biggest problem is the IT people who are under the impression that data science is a subfield of IT or adjacent to IT. It's not. It's nowhere near it. And just because you've learned Python doesn't mean that you can learn statistics as easily. It doesn't work that way.
100%.
It does not work that way. And generally, if people ask people, what can I do to become a serious data scientist? I'd say, do a Masters of Stats or maybe econometrics.
Yeah, I agree.
If you don't have the STEM, if you're not a solid physicist or statistician or actuary or something like that, do a Masters of Stats.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we're going to thank you for that answer because I think that's spot on the money. I think we're going to have to call this particular podcast short, but it's been a pleasure talking to you, Eugene.
Thank you very much, Paul.
And I think we should do this again sometime.
Look forward to it.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Paul here again. So yeah, if you liked that episode of The Humans of AI, please feel free to click or subscribe to your favorite podcast provider, as that would really help us out. We have a lot of content coming up in the next couple of months. So yeah, looking forward to getting it out to you, and see you around soon.